Hello everyone, how you doing? So if you're new here to my channel, you're very welcome. My name is Akwe and I'm really excited you're here today. So today I've got the lovely Alison Bowie here with me today.
Hello.
I mean, Alison does not need any more introduction because you've been here before, Alison.
I have,
when we did the video about the power of words, isn't it?
Long ago, yes.
Long ago. So you've been here. Alison is my cell leader, big sister, friend, mentor. She's so many things in one. So you're welcome again, Alison.
Thank you. Thank you for having me
You're
on
very
your
welcome.
show.
You're very welcome, Alison. So, I mean, I've done a couple of videos talking about parenting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's parenting, but also, because I'm a Christian, Alison's a Christian, there's parenting the God way. Kingdom parenting, like how God expects us to parent their children. And so Alison we've got 3 adult children. We can't call them babies anymore, they're adult
They're
children.
not babies anymore.
How old is your youngest?
Our youngest is 19. So we
You see?
blinked and she became 19.
you see, exactly. So Alison got 3 adult children. And I mean, I've told you this before, off this camera in church. I see you, the way you've raised your children, because I've watched them as teenagers and I've seen how they love the Lord, they're doing well academically, everything. But the focus for me is really how they really love the Lord. And that's why I have really want you to talk us through today. And so me as a mom of young children, I can have something to hold on to. Like Alison can do it then. I mean, not just Alison and Andy. Hi, Andy, if you're watching. Andy, great
Yes,
dad.
definitely.
Obviously, but because we're talking to Alison, I'll make more reference to Alison, but obviously it's Alison and Andy. So,
He's very much involved in the process.
Exactly. So if you guys have done it, so I can do it as well.
Yeah.
We can do it as
That's
parents
right.
as well. So I just really wanted today to just have a chat about that, like how we parent, raising godly seeds, really parenting the God way, not the world way. Yeah.
Okay.
So your youngest is 19, so more years ago you started having children. So if we go back to the very beginning, I like things from the very beginning. We started to build up from there. When you got married, and obviously you're not gonna have children, did you and your husband, did you have any vision, any plan or the kind of children you're going to have? Or, well, we'll see what this parenting thing throws at us, what will be, or was it like a concrete dream or vision that you wanted for your children?
Yeah, I think we did. I think I would say that parenting the godly way, you cannot do it by accident. You can't just think, oh, this is just going to randomly happen. There are certain decisions and choices that you have to make. And I suppose we had a certain vision in our mind of what we wanted. And I suppose first and foremost, we wanted our children to be disciples of Jesus. And we kind of knew that we would play the biggest role in that. And obviously, even before they were born, we prayed. And so I would pray for the babies in my womb. The prayer that I prayed a lot was, Lord, when they're confronted with a choice, may they always choose Jesus every time, because children are always confronted with choices to make, whether they'll choose to do something that they know in their hearts is wrong, or they'll choose God's way. So I used to pray that over them. So I suppose that was the first thing. But I suppose, having a vision for what you see for your children. I think we were blessed in having Clive and Sally, our pastors. Their children were a little bit older than our children, well, much older really, but we looked and thought we like what we see in those children, so we often took advice from Clive and Sally on, so I would say, getting good advice from other parents.
I was going to say that, so if I take 2 things from what you said, the one that really struck me, that not by accident.
No, definitely.
So there's going to be a level of you have to be deliberate, intentional, you just, because sometimes we tend to oh, those kids are so this, that. I wish mine could be like that. I always say wishes don't produce results. You have to so there's some deliberate actions there. And then the other thing that you said again that really struck me there is having kind of role model. So you had Clive and Sally, and you saw their children. I like what I see. So I'm going to glean from them how did they do. So that's really very good. So not so you don't get godly children by accident, and you must have role models, people So you can see, like I said, like
Yeah.
see Alison and your children like something to hold on to. So
Yeah.
that's a possibility that I can do. Then
Yeah.
obviously, like I seek advice from you and things like
Yeah.
that. So that's very good. So we're talking about parenting the world way, and
Yeah.
when I start having children, you know that children are a gift from God.
Yeah.
And then there's this parable of talent. Some Bible passages say call it talent, some say the gift,
Yeah.
when the owner of the house gave them gift.
Yeah.
And then he went away and then asked what he did with them, what they did
Yeah.
with the gift, and he came back.
Yeah.
So like so it just so there's just this like a light bulb moment. Like my kids are a gift from God.
Yeah.
That's a gift. And God's gonna ask what I do with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And so like I really need to be more intentional how I raise them. And so I can say boldly, you've got godly children. I see them every day in church. I'm so proud. I can remember the day when Rachel preached them. Like I kept looking at you like, how proud is Alison and Andy just watching their little girl become this preaching this word, and the other ones in the music department, Nathan raising the things and all of that. How? If I'm going to take notes, like how can we raise godly children in this generation especially?
Right. Well, first of all, I would say you need to parent out of conviction and not out of any sort of reaction, because I think I've often heard parents say, well, I'm never going to do it the way my parents did it. So maybe their parents were really very strict. So what they end up doing is that they end up being really not very strict with their children, and so they end up producing children who will never obey anybody and don't care about authority because they were parented really strictly. So it was actually I'm saying parent out of conviction, but in fact I owe this one to Bill Johnson, who pastors a church in Redding in California. He said parent out of conviction, but certainly that was our intention, that you have a set of convictions in your mind about what it is that you want to see in your children, and you kind of stick to that rather than thinking, oh, my parents did it that way, so I'm going to do it the same way as my parents, or I'm going to do the opposite if you don't like what your parents.
So you're not creating a balance, so to speak. Just like I said, it's literally out of fear, isn't it?
Yeah. So I suppose that's the big one, is have a sense in your mind about what it is to be a godly parent and what it is that you're wanting to produce in your children. So I guess we wanted we kind of wanted our children to be leaders in the sense of being influential to their peer groups for good. Right. We wanted our children to appreciate and love people from all nations. So we kind of really sowed to that. So I mean, just even a simple example, if we were having a meal at somebody else's house, we would say to our children before they went to the house, you may not enjoy everything about this meal, but we would ask that you eat this meal because it's really a respectful thing to do in somebody else's house, to eat their food, because it's a real sign of, that you really appreciate them if you appreciate their food. And I guess that was because we really wanted to sow this idea that they would love people from all nations. So that was something that we kind of thought, no, we really want to bring our children up like that, because I know enough children, they sit at the table and go, I don't like this and I don't like that. And in fact, Sally said to me, they would say to the children that you can have one thing that you will not eat, and that's it. So pick the one thing that you won't eat. But all of that has got a reason behind it, and that was this idea that we wanted to respect people from all nations, because in our church, we're a church that's an international church, and we want to be welcoming to everybody. So things like that.
So parenting out of conviction. So, and it goes back to what you said, it's not by accident. So like you have so you've planned it out, and everything you do stems from that. And then I mean, so that's one aspect. How to raise godly children. And you said something about being God, if you wanted to be godly parents. And so how do you define like a godly parent, or like?
Okay, so I think a godly parent is one who is like 100% relying on God for help for raising their children, and they actually see it as a process of training and discipling. So I guess if we as parents see that we're being discipled, then we'll want to disciple our children. And if we as parents want to be godly, then of course we want our children to be godly. And I guess the opposite is true too. We cannot even hope to raise godly children if we're not going to be godly ourselves, which is what Bruno, your son, pointed out last week. It's just so essential. Like, children do not miss a trick. Children spot a whiff of hypocrisy. So you cannot say to your children, just do as I say, but not as I do. Your whole life has to be this kind of living example. So the best way to teach your children how to love God is to love God with all your heart yourself. I was going to say it's as simple as that. It's as hard as that. Because obviously, but I think the other thing is to be humble enough to admit when you get it wrong, because that models something to your children. That models how to say sorry. And one of the things that I think we, again, really wanted our children to grasp was taking responsibility for when they've done something wrong, owning up, and then being able to say sorry about it, and then seeking forgiveness. Now that sounds like a very ponderous thing to say, but you can teach your children how to say sorry really well, so that they can say, I'm sorry I did this, will you forgive me? They can do that with their friends. You can teach them how to do that with their friends. Our children used to get really upset because I remember one of our children saying, they wouldn't forgive me, which is kind of sad when you've been trying to teach them something, but there's no guarantee other people will. But then that's another lesson, isn't it?
Wow.
Is teaching your children that not everybody will do it.
So you're responsible for what you do, so to speak. You can't really dictate what the other person is doing. You're teaching them to be better human, following after God, but then also knowing that that person might not respond how you want them to respond, but this is how God expects you.
And it is hard, because if you're teaching your children to follow after God, then it has to somehow incorporate in that this idea that not everybody will. Not all children will choose to follow God. Not all children will do things the right way. And helping them kind of navigate that is as much part of raising godly children, because otherwise your children have got the tendency to be a bit proud and arrogant. You know what I mean? So you've got to kind of help them guard against the fact that if they're doing the right thing, there's no guarantee anybody else will. There's just no guarantee. So that's all part of the training.
Wow. I like this training, because Bible actually says train up a child, isn't it?
That's
and I like what you talked about, if you make mistakes, being able to apologize. A lot, because parenting, as much as it's you training your child, it's also training for the parents, isn't it? These are humans just into your hands, and there's no manual that came with it, isn't it? So you're training on the job, you're having to train these children, so mistakes really is part of parenting. Because sometimes a lot of parents, when they make mistakes, just feel like, I'm just a bad parent. But making a mistake doesn't make you a bad parent. No, that does it, no?
Yeah, but children are forgiving, and children are actually really forgiving. When you ask their forgiveness, that I don't know a single time that our children didn't say, yes, mummy, we forgive you, and even as time went by, when they were teenagers and we were looking back on things where I think, well, we could have done things better, but it just gave them an opportunity to say, we're not looking for perfection in you. That's not what we're looking for. So that was a relief, because I think for the first little while maybe I thought that I needed to be the perfect parent, but we're not. None of us are going to be the perfect parent. But I think being humble with your children
when you make a mistake
helps a lot.
And it also teaches them as well. So when they make mistakes in life, they're not feeling like, I'm worthless now. But they've seen mom and dad make mistakes as well, which obviously you're the first role model for your children. So mom and dad made a mistake and they could come and say, we're sorry. And if I make a mistake as well, it doesn't make me a useless person. I just need to learn. So that's really good. That's really, really good. And so we're talking about godly parent, godly children. So as a Christian, you hear people say things like, my kids will choose for themselves when they grow older. Or it's like, you're in church, they're not in church. Like, no, they're just at home. They probably don't want to come to church. I guess they'll choose. And I'm like, I don't
You're
know.
taking a big risk.
Because
Taking
your
that
first,
attitude.
your first ministry, your first assignment is your children. When the Bible says go into the world and preach the gospel, this is the first.
That's
this is
right.
your first point of.
I know what a sorrow it would be
Mhm.
if you want all these people to follow Jesus and then your children didn't follow Jesus. And I think we took the attitude of we would do everything we could to help our children choose Jesus, because obviously at the end of the day, they do have that freedom to make a choice, but oh boy, we were going to make that choice as easy as possible for them. So we wanted them to love church and love the people of God. We wanted them to be part of whatever thing we were doing to serve God. We wanted them to be part of that, so they came with us. Whatever we were doing, they were with us. And I think that then they kind of saw, I suppose, by example, and they were able to join in where they could join in. And I kind of think, again, is this what you were talking? Is this whole intentional life? Is you have to intentionally disciple your children towards Jesus, and then when they show any signs of wanting that, jump at the chance to say, would you want this? And even if it's the age of 3 or 4, they're never too young to follow Jesus, never too young, because some people say, oh well, they don't really understand it, but you can keep helping them as they mature and grow with that.
On TV and you understand. I can understand.
Exactly.
We just had to make so many. It's funny when I hear a lot of times like the kids are home. I'm like, how do you feel? I think it really boils down to the fact that when you say that for you to raise godly children, you have to be a godly person in the sense that you really need to love. Your children need to see you really like. There's no microwave approach to it, and there's no shortcuts really. They just need to see you. They need to see you live it out, and then in that and because if I love, just like I can't tell my children they'll choose to go to school when they want to, isn't it? Because I know school is good for them. So why do we do that option of the Lord? I'm like, they will choose when they want, when they're ready. I think that's really a big mistake, really. If you're in that position, I mean, it's never like we're talking about mistakes, so you can make a mistake as a parent. That's actually a mistake you're making. Sorry, I don't know if I sound too, but it is because in the sense like they might not. The word's gonna just so many ideas from the word. You should be able to bounce those ideas with the foundation at home, really. And so there's no really godly.
It makes this assumption that there's some kind of neutral ground out there. There is no neutral ground, because if our children aren't following Jesus, they're going to follow something else. So I kind of think, well, Jesus is the best person in the world to follow. So of course I'm going to present Jesus to them. And of course we're going to read about him, of course we're going to pray to him, of course we're going to do all those things, because that's what we want for our children. So I would also add though, in case this is all getting a bit heavy, that one of the things that I valued highly was that we would have fun with our children, and we would turn anything into fun. So even to the extent of when they were little, if you had to try and get them to put their shoes on, I would turn it into a putting shoes on song, or just anything to make it more fun. So if we were going to walk in the woods, we would pretend there were bears around, or just anything.
Sorry to cut you short, Alison. I think sometimes a lot of people always mistake Christianity for being very boring. Leading your children to God doesn't take away the fun part of it.
Anything can be fun, and everything can be fun. And I mean, so one of the things I think is also essential is that when your children are young, get them to learn to love doing chores with you, like helping around the house, because when they're little, every skill they learn is just a wonderful boost to their confidence. So you're denying your children that boost to their confidence of learning skills if you're saying no, I don't let the children in the kitchen, I don't let them near the kitchen table, I don't let them near anything to do with housework, because the children. But no, it's the opposite. You should be like getting your children involved in housework from the minute they're able, because even tiny children can sort out washing or shove washing into washing machines. I mean, when they're little, they tend to put it in and then pull it out again because they're learning about in and out, but that's okay. Or they take things off shelves and then put them back on again. But that's all part of the process of them learning skills. And I think children get such a boost from being able to do
I can do
things.
it. I do it myself. I do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think don't deny your children that privilege of learning how to do things for yourself. I mean, I don't know if this is because I am not particularly task focused, but I did not love doing all my children's clothes washing. So by the time our youngest was 6, I think she was able to load her own washing into the washing machine, and they all did their own washing and hung up their washing. Just because I kind of figured,
I love that. Yeah, it's true.
They should do it. I mean, so I should add that we did homeschool our children, so we did have.
Oh my goodness, yeah, Alison, we can't actually have this conversation and end without talking about that. Because the first time I met you in church, I'm like, what's wrong with this lady? Is she okay? Why is she? Of all the things, like, because I'm Nigerian from Africa, coming from back home, Africa. We have more help, so to speak, when you're raising your children. Maybe your mom, your dad, you could have a nanny and help and things like that. It's not as, I don't know the right word to use. Right here in Britain and in the Western world, you tend to do things all by yourself, like, or you pay for it, isn't it? And it costs so much, and you're thinking. So then I'm like, why do I want to add homeschooling to all the things I have to do? Like, what is? But aside that, like, okay, she could do it, but I actually worried, like, would that not affect their, I've asked you that question before, like, their social life and things like that and all that. Maybe if you just quickly touch on that. What was there a particular reason why you chose to homeschool your children?
Yeah, I suppose it was all part of just what we've been talking about. I think we just thought that homeschooling them was just an extension to discipling and mentoring our children. And I suppose I realise that homeschooling is not for everybody, and not everybody feels that sense of confidence that they could educationally do that. But we just figured, well, it was all just part of the same thing, because essentially, until your children are 4, you're kind of doing that anyway, aren't you? You're educating them, you're mentoring them, you're discipling them. I mean, who teaches their children how to walk? It's parents, right? It's you going, come on, holding out your hand like this. Well, that's parents mentoring their children and educating their children. So I just figured, well, it's just a broader let me
just add, Alison's children are very sociable, and they are all the fears I had about, like, when I had one of the fears I had, like, to just be like,
well, they'd be a bit weird.
No, her kids are in no way weird at all. Like, all 3 of our children they are normal, if I add that. So if you think you can homeschool, I cannot homeschool anybody. If you think you can homeschool your children, and that's the fear you have, that, they'll not be social. No. I mean, I've seen it. Her kids are normal. They've all gone to university, out working. They are very normal children, even more normal than the normal. If I put it that way, So I guess that really helped you to really, like, cement all you were teaching them, isn't it?
Well, I had the time to do it. I think that's the point, but that doesn't excuse parents who delegate education to schools. It's just kind of like a different process. And in fact, one of the things I would say about when you're sending children to school is take every opportunity you can after school to kind of debrief with your children, because that's just an amazing opportunity to
explain that better. I want to
debrief. Yeah. Well, like Clive and Sally would say, dust your children off, because basically when you go to school, they're having all sorts of social interactions, they're having all sorts of experiences, and sometimes you hear about it, but sometimes you don't. But it's almost like you have to purposefully in the day say, so what happened? Did anything, what good things happened? Did anything bad happen? Did anything happen with your friends that was good? Anything happen with your friends that wasn't so good? So that you can sort of talk them through the process of what happened in the day. Essentially, it's like your job is to interpret the world for your children. Again, I'm sorry, I can't give credit to myself. That's a Clive Harding. He used to say the job of parents is to interpret the world for your children. So when something bad happens, you can posture your child so that they don't become offended or bitter. You can help them to forgive, or if something that they don't understand has happened, you can explain it to them. So that's your job as a parent. That's what you're there for. So it's a huge role, but you can still do that when your children are at school, because there's a whole bit of time after school where you can be talking about what happened in school. Now, some people will say, well, they don't tell me anything. They say, what did you do in school? Nothing. Or they don't tell you. But you can, what's the word? You can develop that with your children by not just asking questions you wouldn't normally
know a lot
ask.
about them from what they say, do we? Like, when I ask my children, like, know about certain children in the classes, behaviors and everything. They tell you so much. Like I said, something like how was school fine, but if you take it further, another level, like being very specific with what you do with it, what you do with that, and you see them begin to open so much more.
That's it.
I really like what you said there. I really, really like that. You said the job of a parent is to interpret the word for their children, and as well, if we add it as Christian as well as interpreting from the aspect of God,
that's
like from
right,
the Bible, because so many doctrines. I mean, if I say in my times, I sound like I'm very old. I'm like,
and you are now, aren't you? You're on the fourth story.
Fourth floor.
She's on the fourth floor.
When I say in my time, kids these days have more resources, the internet. In my days, there was no internet. We didn't have lab. We didn't have tablets and all that when I was in primary school and all that. But now they've got so many things. So they're hearing so many things. Friends, if when you thought something they said to me, oh, my friend said this, my friend asked me this, mommy, this, right? So there's so much. So it's really, I think if I just find a way to end here is, I think we cannot raise godly children if we not develop ourselves. Because there's so much. You're the teacher, you're the role model, you're their disciple, you're their pastor, you're the one interpreting the word from them. You can't give out what you don't have, really.
That's right.
You can't.
You gotta feed on God, because you don't want to be running on empty raising your children. And it does take imagination to find places and times to do that when you have little children. And I mean, God is kind and gracious, but it is important to find those times in the day where you feed on the word and you pray so that you've got enough to give to your children. That is really important. And I would just say as well, if you don't let phones be babysitters for your children, and think carefully about when you want to give your children access to social media, because what's on the internet is some of it is wonderful stuff, some of it is shocking stuff, and don't be laid back about that kind of thing. I would really, really encourage that. That's my waving a bit of a flag about these things, because once a child sees something, it's very difficult to unsee it, and the statistics are absolutely shocking about children who have accidentally come across things that you would not want them to have seen. So it's really important that you're super intentional about what you're going to do about social media and about phones. So that's just a little extra for you there.
No, that's good. There's so much if I kind of sum up everything you said there, there's so if you're a young parent, you want to start thinking about being a parent, the first thing is having a vision.
Yes. And
let's even assume you're a parent already, you've made so many mistakes, you can start now, have a vision.
Of course, you can start.
What kind of children do I want to have? And like I said to you before I started, one of my greatest dreams and prayers I always pray is children really that full after, because I know that my kids know Jesus, follow Jesus, they're made for life. Because the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom of God. Every other thing, those other things we're pursuing, they're going to be added really. But sometimes we tend to want them to be better in the academics and all that, and hope that they'll eventually find the Lord. But it's meant to be from here first and then go that. So there's the vision, what we want my children to be, and then out of conviction, not out of fear. So sometimes, and it's funny, especially coming back from an African background, a lot of times well, maybe we didn't have so much, so my kids are going to they won't suffer. But then you're teaching them to be so entitled, not even know when to how to act, because you just feel, because I lack, so I'm going to give them excess. But then you're not doing them any justice, isn't it? So don't parent from your parents' shortcomings or your parents' mistake. Parent from conviction. There's a lot of intentionality there as well. You need to be intentional when you want them to have role models for your children, role models that you can look up to. But most importantly, you can't have godly children without being a godly person yourself. It doesn't just happen it's not wish upon it, abracadabra. I wish my children could just fear the Lord. Wish upon it. No, you can't give out what you don't have. So first of all, you need to first of all invest in yourself. Let your relationship with Jesus be solid, and from that, And like I said, the Lord is very gracious. So he will help you, even tell you how to go about really training your children, isn't it?
True. Yeah, for each individual child as well, because obviously each child is very different, and you're going to need revelation for each child as well. So, yeah.
There's so many things you said I'm going to go really think on, and thank you. Like I said, thanks for
You're
being a
very
role model.
welcome.
Thank you that I always see your children like, okay, Alison and Andy's done this, I can do it as well. And it's like, there's hope, like if they've done it, I can do it as well,
Yes.
So thank you.
You're very
for everyone
welcome.
there really wishing to raise godly children, it's possible. And that's actually, it's not even like if you want to raise godly children, if you're a Christian, that's God's expectation from you.
It's God's heart for your life. It's like your inheritance. It's God's best inheritance to have godly children.
Yes,
godly parents.
It is. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alison. I'll see you next week Wednesday. And if this video bless you, like, share to someone that you think is going to bless as well. And that's it. Bye. Thank you. And God bless you. Thank you. Bye.